So yeah, my name is Jordan Geiger. I'm a co-founder of Black Lives Matter South Bend, Indiana, which is located in the Midwest region of the United States. And I've been actively involved in BLM-related work for the last 6 years. We actually were founded 6 years ago this past October. Most of our work is around police brutality, ending state-sanctioned violence against Black people, and ensuring that our community is getting the resources that it needs to be viable and self-determining. So our major campaigns in particular are around which you might refer or know as defunding the police. So we are looking to take money from the police budget and to redirect that into Black communities to support and sustain our folks. We're also working to remove police from public schools because police are on the front lines of pushing our kids into the school to prison pipeline. Many of our young people have been beaten, battered, tased, and detained and arrested by police officers. And in my county, we're actually one of the worst in the state of Indiana when it comes to juvenile referrals to prison. And then in addition to that, I work around what we call our Black People's Budget, where we created a 38-page budget where we go through line item by item as to how the city should invest in Black communities, primarily around youth engagement and employment, housing, economic development, and infrastructure.
We know that the Black Lives Matter movement has transformed politics in the United States. How did you make the Mexico connection?
Yeah, so one of our former members, Igor Rodriguez, who's an interpreter here today, is from my city. And 3 years ago, he got involved in our chapter around, as we were organizing around the death of a 54-year-old Black man named Eric Logan, who was murdered on Father's Day. And when I first met Igor and he told me about his background and his work, I expressed to him my interest in working with Afro-Latino communities and organizers across the diaspora. And so he knew that he shared with me that he was very connected with folks in Colombia and different parts of Central and South America. And so that's sort of like how this naturally happened. He ended up leaving our city a year or two ago, or a year ago now, and moving to Mexico City. And through his partner, he met Marco. Marco explained the idea around the Peace Summit, and he recommended me. He thought that I would be a great representative for BLM folks living in the United States.
Great, and so it's not just here in Mexico, but you've been making contacts throughout Latin America.
Yes.
And what's been your experience so far here in the Cumbre and in general in Mexico?
It's been incredible, a whirlwind of a visit. I've been here for just over a week now. I've got another week and a half to go. And during my time, I've met with a number of Afro-Mexican organizations. I was actually able to make it down to the meeting of the Black Towns in Oaxaca, and just built incredible connections with folks, heard their stories, learned about their history, culture, and their issues, and have just been very moved and inspired by the resilience and the resistance that has been fomented by the Afro-Mexican people.
How do you think this connection will make your movement stronger?
Yeah, there are a number of us within BLM. We do consider ourselves to be a Pan-African organization. And so that requires of us to build relationships with people of African descent across our diaspora, across the world. And so one thing that I think, when challenged that has faced BLM, is that so much of the attention has been put on the U.S. For obvious reasons. The U.S. always tends to be the center of the world. And a number of us want to change that. We want to make sure that we are empowering and supporting and building relationships and lines of solidarity with people of African descent all across North America, so Canada, the UK, Central and South America, the Caribbean, and Africa. So it was important for me to make it down here by way of global exchange so that I can begin to build those connections and to amplify the work that is happening here in Mexico among the Black people.
Well, it's really important for Mexico as well. What are some of the main parallels that you've seen, like police brutality, militarization, forms of discrimination?
Yes, so many similarities in terms of prejudice and discrimination. The issue of like deportation, how so many Black Mexicans are mistook for Honduran or Colombian, and when they are harassed by the police, they're unfortunately deported. It's a very similar issue in the United States. From their own country. From their own country, exactly. Yeah. It's somewhat similar to the United States, where Black immigrants who come into the United States are more likely to be deported, more likely to be detained, more than any other group. And that often goes unaddressed and is not really popularized or talked about in our media. Also, as they talk about just the economic challenges and the issues in education, very similar to the United States, where we struggle with the around the issue of being undereducated and lack of access to economic opportunities. The violence, what was really shared with me that was so profound was the experiences of Black women who live in Chiapas and also Guerrero, and how these women have come up missing, and no one is generally concerned, and how women have been organizing among themselves to respond to this violence, and as a result have faced tremendous threats from paramilitary groups who are looking to harm them, and so they've had to go into hiding. So in the United States, very similar issues where Black women and young girls come up missing, and there's no search party, no one is concerned. So seeing those similarities are important for me, because I think we have to begin to, of course, recognize where the differences are, but also to draw the parallels. Yep.
And build the bridges.
Exactly, and build the bridges, And the issue of gun violence, because gun violence is a leading, homicide by firearms is one of the leading causes of death among young Black men, ages 24 to 16 or 16 to 24. And we struggle so much with this issue of Black on Black violence in the United States, because people really struggle to understand that it's part of the design, like the system is bent on destroying us. And so we're not manufacturing these weapons. So how are our young people, how are our kids, our teenagers, how are they getting access to these weapons that are just wreaking havoc in our community? So hearing about the challenges here around gun violence, how guns are coming from the United States into Mexico and other parts of Central and South America, and how drugs are coming from Central and South America into the United States and ending up in our communities, right? These are powerful conversations and dialogues that we need to have among ourselves, as a people, so that we can struggle together in order to undo these systems of oppression.